we get illy, tough like South Philly. Got the cold steel, it's about to get chilly. Major figures like Gilly, I'm an outlaw kid Billy. How the fuck am I funny? You'll get slapped silly. Learn from the OGs, respect what you're shown. Real stand-up guys like Sonny Mazzone and Joey Merlino. We bring beef like Gino, steak out at your house with a hidden name Nino. I know the gutter real well. My dudes coming through with that gunpowder smell. If you can't tell, I enjoy hell. G's moving silent, you'll never hear me yell. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't touch the waters. Code of the streets, you gotta follow orders. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't touch the waters. Code of the streets, you gotta follow orders. Knock around guys, wise to the Avways, better than most. Even on my bad days, meetings in cafes, strip clubs and bars. At any time it's rock and roll, but we don't have guitars. Fuck fancy cars, I'm low-key in the beat. I know a couple young boys who stay with the heater. Need a chick like Drita, Rob Paul to Bay Peter. You couldn't walk in my shoes, not even half a meter. Young Turks, smack off your smirks on what they don't want to see, like a million Jimmy Perks. Yo, Lord Willin', Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pepsi's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, Havana nocturne. Light up a cigar and watch your spot burn. You'll get patty whacked, I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Rubber guys, hooligans and block lurkers. Corner berserkers, street savvy soldiers. You owe, you better pay. Don't make me say I told you. Code you don't betray, I say what I mean. Providence and Brooklyn all the way to the Bean. I'd rather be unseen, like Vinny the Chin. I don't gotta go to Vegas to see cities of sin. Pull the pin, drop bombs like Danny Green. I write homicide like the murder machine. Lansky Luciano, mastermind the racket. Up in the clam house with $1 million in my jacket. Move around when the streets get darker. Pay homage to real bosses like Gambino and Patriarcha. Mob talking, but you don't talk to the mob. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, we stay on our job. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life of a beast.
And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
Hello, everybody. I am Jeff Canarsie. If you're unfamiliar with my show, it is called Mob Talk Radio. Got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Do me a solid. If you can hear what I'm saying, please press the number 1 so I know that everyone can hear me. And then we'll go through what we're going to do tonight. I'm not expecting a lot of people. It is Thanksgiving Eve for a lot of people, so I'm sure everybody's out doing their different things. All right, I'm seeing ones, so I'm going to go through and say hello to everybody in the chat, and then I'll let you know what I'm doing tonight. So let me go up here to the top. Ben, what's shaking? Donald, Kelly, Mark, Michael, let's see, Beard the Butcher, Terrell Thomas, Timothy Good, Maureen, how are you? Unknown. Gianni, how are you? Rebecca, what's up? Raymond, how are you? Let's see who else we got in here. Robert, what's shaking? Please, no one be dumb tonight. Yeah, no cock picks, please. We're not, in case I've got to be the only person on YouTube who's had this repeatedly happen. But from now on, anybody that comes on the show, you got to show your face. At least in the background. If you don't, you're not coming on the show. That's just the end of it. All right. Stacy, how are you? Cinnamon Girl. Anthony was shaking. How are you? EEE Records, what's shaking? I think that's just, Jesse Roth. How are you? Pat, how are you? Dustin, long time no see. Frank Ferraro. Let's see. Medit, how are you? Donald, what's shaking? Slayer of MobTube. Vicky. Tommy K. Terrell. All right. So I think that's about it for right now. What? I'm going to court for a dick pic. It's unbelievable. Wow. You know, the problem with people that do that, I got to be honest with you. The problem with people doing that is you don't know if there's kids watch. I hope there's no kids watching this show. I hope there's no kids watching this show, but people don't think about that. They don't think about that, and they do shit like that, and some 12-year-old could see a prick. I mean, we don't need that kind of stuff. And I know who did it. And he knows who he is, and I'm just kind of enjoying watching him squirm all over the place, freaked out that I'm going to expose him, which I'm not. I think he's already exposed himself. And I think at least if you're going to show your prick, maybe it shouldn't be like, that. I'm just saying. Anyway, so for those of you that are new, typically when we do these lives, we usually have a set pattern we go with. It is going to be open forum tonight. It is the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination. And one of the things that I am definitely, I got to put these on because I can't hear it myself. One of the things that we typically do, and one of the things I don't want to do tonight, I don't want to get into a who did what, who saw what, who did this, who did that, because if we talk about the Kennedy assassination in those terms, we're going to be here for the next 16 years. So I want to keep it just based I'm laughing at Beard the Butcher's coming. At least it should be, at bare minimum, a conversation about organized crime. For those that don't know, the Kennedys were effectively their own organized crime family. However, we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight. The two things I want to talk about is there's been another mob hit in Montreal. And it's non-surprising. It's non-surprising. And there's been a lot of people that have come out that are talking about this that really shouldn't be, because they don't understand what's going on. To them, it's just sort of a headline, and they can throw it out there and just talk about it, but they don't understand Canada. They don't understand the politics of this stuff. And for them, it's just a headline. And I think that if you're going to be in this genre, you should know what you're talking about, at least a little bit. That's from where I stand. So we're going to talk about that. And yeah, Rebecca's 60 years already. Can you believe it? And by the way, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. We're 20 away from 20,000. So if you could do me just a solid and subscribe, I would truly, truly appreciate that. In case I forget to say it tonight, I wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving. As we get going here, like I said, I wasn't expecting a whole lot with this Thanksgiving Eve, but I'm not going to come on Thanksgiving night. That's just kind of not what I'm going to do. So we're going to talk about the Kennedy stuff for a little while. I will drop the link here in a few minutes. If anybody wants to come on and talk about it, we absolutely can. Tommy K, we're kind of going to address that a little bit. But I think what I want to do before we do anything else is I want to talk about the Kennedys first. And there's only one way to start this.
Everyone is voting for Jack, 'cause he's got what all the rest lack. Everyone wants to back Jack. Jack is on the right track, 'cause he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. 1960's the year for his high hopes. Come on and vote for Kennedy. Vote for Kennedy, and we'll come out on top. Oops, there goes the opposition girl. Oops, there goes the opposition girl. Oops, there goes the opposition girl. Flop. K-E-double-N-E-D-Y. Jack's the nation's favorite guy. Everyone wants to back Jack. Jack is on the right track, 'cause he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. 1960's the year for his high hopes. Come on and vote for Kennedy. Vote for Kennedy. Keep America strong. Kennedy, he just keeps rolling up. Kennedy, he just keeps rolling up. Kennedy, he just keeps rolling along. Vote for Kennedy.
And there you kind of have it. You know, the thing is, we can't sit here all night and debate who did what, because the list is, I think I counted a list earlier. There's like over 100 people that were allegedly involved in it. And what I don't want to focus on Alan Dulles. I don't want to focus on David Ferry. I want to focus on these guys right here, because in reality, the mob really did not have a lot to do with this. I'm trying not to go down a rabbit trail, excuse me, but we're going to pull this on the screen. All right, you guys can see that. These are the guys that would have been involved. Okay, with Carlos Marcello, Santos Trafficante, Johnny Roselli, and Sam Giancana. Now, are there other people? Absolutely, Jimmy Hoffa. There's a whole list of people. But at the time, the two on the left, Marcello and Trafficante, were probably the two most powerful gangsters at the time, albeit politically. You know, because obviously we know Carlo Gambino was a boss at the time. But Carlo Gambino, from what I understand, there was a bit of an airtel from the FBI about there was a meeting that took place right before all of this happened, where it's been alleged that Carlo Gambino just kind of said he wanted nothing to do with it, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality of the situation is, of all these men that you see on screen, they all have something astonishingly in common. Every single one of these men knew Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay. Every single one of these men on screen knew Jack Ruby. All right. And that to me is no coincidence. Now, what we do know, and hopefully, okay, you can see my mouse here, right? So Johnny Roselli was the connect to the CIA, Mayhew, Alan Dulles, and everybody else. And it's through Roselli that everybody gets in contact with Giancana, who gets in contact with Trafficante and Marcello. It was actually Trafficante's land when the U.S. military was going to go into Cuba. It was actually Cuban exiles that trained in swampland in Florida. And the reason why they trained there was because it most resembled what they would be going into Cuba. But the problem is the United States military is kind of a laughing. I don't know if it's funny, but they didn't understand the tides in Cuba. They didn't bother to look at the tides. And so what ended up happening was when the U.S. forces landed in Cuba, they ended up landing in mud. Or not the U.S. forces, but the Cuban exiles. So all of this is interconnected. But here's the thing, and this is kind of what I want to ask some of you guys a question. This is where you guys are going to get to participate. Put a number 1 in the chat if you think the mafia was solely responsible for the murder of JFK. By the way, KXTA, thank you very much. Do me a favor. If anybody named Damian Trites comes in here, block them. He's a scumbag. We don't want him in here. If that was even really him. I could be wrong. So put a number 1. No, Frank Sinatra was not a Gambino associate, but he was third cousins with Carlo Gambino, if that makes you feel better. All right. So Sully says too. So Sulla does not agree that organized crime had anything to do with Kennedy. Bobby Lee does think. Not solely. Now, see, this is kind of where I stand with all of this. There is such a wide gap between the mob being upset about Cuba, being promised certain things that if they helped prior to Kennedy's assassination, obviously, as everybody knows, the mob was contracted to try to kill Fidel Castro, and there were overtures made to the mob. You guys can go back to Cuba and kind of do your thing. And then, as we know it, Bobby Kennedy kind of turns heel in this whole entire thing. And what ends up happening is the mob gets pissed because they help Kennedy get elected. And then basically Bobby just starts going crazy on them. And that's why the temperature was raised. But the bigger question that I have for all of you is what would the mob what would they have had to gain? What would they have had to gain by rubbing out Kennedy, John F. Kennedy? And my answer to that is nothing. They had everything to gain by killing Bobby. 100% I can agree with that. But I think in terms of the assassination, okay, and then I'll get into some legal stuff. In terms of the assassination, I don't think for 1 second the mob fired the shot, but do I think they helped coordinate? 100%. 100%. I think that they helped coordinate. How deep that goes, I'm not really sure. But like the old saying goes, is if nothing shady went on, why is it that each president comes into office and refuses to release the files? You know, and I think that is the bigger misconception. I mean, we can talk about Vietnam, the big business, the oil machine, the weapons manufacturing. I mean, there's all of this crazy stuff that we could talk about. But typically what you see is the mob is always somehow seems to get blamed for some stuff like that, like this. And I think honestly, and this may be surprising, but I don't think the mob had that much power. I don't think that they had much power to do that on their own. It would have been a situation where they were subcontracted to get involved. We know that John F. Kennedy was shot at least twice, shot at least from the back and then from the front. So it's an interesting conspiracy, and I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of that. And like I said, they didn't have the sole power to do something like that. It's very interesting. If you guys go to YouTube and you watch any of JFK's sort of right after he gets elected, some of the speeches he gives, look at the face of Lyndon Johnson rolling his eyes. He hated Kennedy. He absolutely hated Kennedy. And there was a lot of different reasons for this. And I don't want to go into the whole up and down scheme of what happened. But I think typically if the mob had any sort of involvement, it would have come from these four gentlemen. Even though Sam Giancana was sort of a front boss at the time, these would have been the four that ultimately Chucky Nicoletti as well, that would have had something to do with it. Now, Jack Ruby, who we talk about all the time, was absolutely a gangster. A lot of people don't realize that. And Jack Ruby and Oswald went back a long way. Oswald's uncle was a gangster too. Jack Ruby's main thing was sort of running all of the nightclubs for the mob in the Midwest. And you mean to tell me that, and here's the interesting thing with Ruby killing Oswald is for 2 days, Ruby kept continuously going to the police station in Texas where ultimately Oswald was held. And like all the police force knew him because when Ruby fires that shot, one of the cops yells out, "Damn it, Jack, what are you doing?" So everybody knew him. They didn't find that to be odd that for 2 days he's just roaming around getting the layout of the place. To me, that's just that's kind of crazy. That's just kind of crazy to me. So I'm, like I said, I don't think that they ultimately had anything to do with the murder itself, except for the cover up and the scheming and stuff like that. But then again, what did they really truly gain from that? They never got Cuba back. What did they gain? The government kind of got what they wanted, but what did the mob really get? I seem to remember we were told in school the files would be released in 2050. Well, actually, believe it or not, Trump said that he was going to do it. Biden said he was going to do it. But once they went and actually read the files, they decided that they weren't going to do that. I know that in 2014, there was a law that was posted that the CIA was supposed to deliver all of these files, and they redacted everything and refused to hand anybody anything. And listen, this sort of isn't a conspiracy. The conspiracy is who did it, right? The conspiracy is who were the shooters, who were the plotters, who was involved. But the reality is the fact that they won't put out any information should just kind of tell you the government's complicit in some form or fashion. You know what I mean? And it's sad. And I think for anybody that does not believe that our government's not capable of that, wow, I don't know what else to tell you. Jeff, tell me this is Marilyn Monroe going to do a tell-all book. So the Marilyn Monroe thing is interesting because she had basically threatened to out everybody, organized crime, the Kennedys, and everybody if Jack didn't stop seeing his wife. And all of the Kennedys were pretty much knocking around with Marilyn Monroe. And as the story goes, Bobby Kennedy, we know this to be fact. There's legal documents for it. That Bobby Kennedy went to see her that night, the night before she died, hours before she died. He went to her house to talk to her. And I would always, only logically assume is to talk her out of doing a tell-all book. And then suddenly, poop, she's dead the next morning. It's been said that Peter Lawford was the guy the Kennedys forced to go over there and knock everything over in the house, making it look like she was, off her rocker. What's true, what isn't, I'm not sure. I'm just absolutely not sure. And I honestly don't think we're ever going to know. I don't think we're ever going to fully know. As we know, Johnny Roselli was an expert marksman. A lot of people have said he was a shooter. I don't typically believe that. But Roselli was really the connection between the CIA and the mob. He was kind of the buffer and the go-to guy. And in fact, multiple CIA agents met with Sam Giancana and Johnny Roselli and Santo Trafficante down in Florida multiple times before all of this sort of went down. So it's a little shady to me, to say the least. But I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know. I don't think the government is ever going to tell us anything. It's not in their interest to do so. I also find it interesting that Bobby Kennedy, the government says was shot in the front, but he was shot in the back like 4 times first. So it's interesting. I don't know if listen, politics aside, if you guys have not seen any of Robert Kennedy Jr.'s interviews on this type of shit, you should listen to what he says, because he's the son. His father was murdered, right? And he's got the autopsy stuff. He's got all of that. And some of the stuff he says is insane. And it makes me wonder, because Robert Kennedy Jr. is running to be president of the United States. I almost wonder if the FBI is, because I don't want to play conspiracy theory here, but my buddy in the chat will laugh at this. Harry Anderson. Is it not funny that they will not give Robert Kennedy Jr. any Secret Service detail? They'll give it to everybody else that's running, but they won't give it to him. What do you think the first thing he's going to want to do if he wins the presidency? He's going to want to go through those files. You know what I mean? Buy a bus and do mob tours. I'd like to see the place you're talking about. There's a bunch of mob tours in this city, actually. They keep popping up in my inbox. Like, oh, what the fuck? I'm not going to go on any of these. But the area of New York City that I do live in was nothing but narcotics and Lucky Luciano. Luciano grew up a couple blocks from me. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. All right, let me go through the chat a little bit. Look at the Murrow assassination. Italian Secret Service claimed the Red Brigade kidnapped and killed him, but it was the government who did it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Stacey, that he did. That he did. And one of the last interviews he ever did, and I'm not even sure if it's on YouTube anymore. It used to be, but somebody had asked him, how his life was, and he aged overnight. Because not only did Sinatra want nothing to do with him and blacklisted him, making sure he couldn't get any work, but as we know, Peter Lawford became like a fucking notorious drunk. I mean, an absurd drunk. And it's been said that in this interview that I saw, they had asked him about the Kennedys and he just wouldn't say anything. He just wouldn't say anything. And according to books that came out and stuff like that, apparently he told some friends in the end, he said that his life was over. His life was over that day because he could never come to terms with his part in that. I don't know. A lot of people bring up Dorothy Kilgallen all of the time, but I don't, you know what? I'm not sure if I believe that story. I mean, I understand where you're going with it. A lot of people bring that up when we talked about, and I believe it or not, we have an 18-part Kennedy series. I will drop the link for that here. Head over to mobtalkradioshow.supercast.com. We have an 18-part Kennedy series from all the way to the beginning of their lives, all the way till, I want to say the 70s. So you'll find out what kind of arch criminals they were. Let's see. What is the reasoning? I don't know. I don't know, Jesse. I really don't know. I know that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is he has a petition out and he's asking for Biden to, because I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but two people have already broken into his property and scared the living daylights out of him. So he's asked Biden for Secret Service protection and they keep saying no. To me, that's a little odd because anybody that runs, Chris Christie, any of these people that are running usually get Secret Service detail, but nobody will answer why he's not being given that. Maybe it's a snub because he's sort of playing the middle now. Maybe because he's sort of left the Democratic Party and he's an independent. Maybe that's what it is. But it's a little strange to me. It's a little strange to me because we've seen this. Did Spilatro wax AMG and kind of? I think so. He would have been the guy. There's a whole host of guys, but he really would have been the guy that would have been able to get as close as anybody else. That's my opinion, but I can't show you a photograph of that and say for sure that is what it is. Good evening, Jeff. Always enjoy your content. Keep it up, pal. Great stuff. KXTA, thank you very much. Yeah, if you guys would not mind donating, I know it is the holiday season, but the money keeps us going and allows us to continue to bring you brand new content. Well, this is the other thing. Michael, I agree with you too. I think there was more than one person there. And I've always thought that Butch Blassie had something to do with it as well. But Butch Blassie was a rat, right? He was an informant. Absolutely. So this is why I typically go against this, Michael, is because Butch Blassie was a paid informant for the FBI, and he was for about 35 years. So why would Blassie not tell them that information? Because if they're going to get absolution for their crimes anyway, then why not? And if you don't believe me about Butch Blassie, then what I need you to do is I need you to go over to Mob Talk Radio Show at supercast.com. We have a segment we do every week called The Rat Files. We've covered about 35 now. Butch Blassie was an informant. So I know that he was questioned, but he was so familiar and so friendly with the FBI that he could have told them he did it. Now, what is true is that Butch Blassie was at his house hours before that. So I can certainly understand why people are saying that. Listen, if I was a speculative kind of guy, then I would definitely say, you know, that would be somebody I would keep my eye on. But the fact that he's an informant, the fact that the FBI was sitting no less than a block and a half away when this happened, who knows? Maybe it's an inside sort of thing. This might be a crazy theory, but I think Accardo himself corked. That would have been something. That would have been something. I heard Jack Ruby had to sit down with Carlos Marcello, with someone as powerful. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because they wanted Ruby to take the pinch. They wanted Ruby to take the pinch for it. And when you're running all of their nightclubs, and when you're the guy that's directly responsible for transporting weapons to an island in Florida, you know, that's what a lot of people don't know is Jack Ruby had to transfer weapons. Okay. And when he did, he used an island which had a house on it that was owned by Trafficante. And how Ruby even acquired a boat to do that was a former military vessel that he used to do it. So there's a lot of moving parts. Who called off the police? From what I understand, the police weren't called off. They weren't called off at all, but they didn't hear anything, you know? So you never know. You never know. The Warren Commission and the single bullet theory is another look at government cover-ups. Ridiculous that one bullet went through JFK, then hit Connolly. Right. And why don't you whack Lyndon Johnson too? I mean, you can take out Connolly, JFK, and Lyndon Johnson. I mean, if you why are they not, you know what I mean? And I think depending on what you want to believe, he gets shot through the throat first, and he pokes at his throat like, what the fuck? And then the back of his head explodes. It's gruesome. Gruesome. I always thought people who killed Giancana was his best friend in that life, Chuck English. Well, that's another one that people say. But I just think, you know, Tony Spilotro with that it's tough. It's tough. We can each have our theories on that. I always just kind of thought that was a Tony Spilotro move. I just always thought it was. Been a long time sub. We didn't have another mob show, but we always had MTR. MTR was first and best. Thank you very much. Okay, Mike, excuse me. Gunman brings up a beautiful point here. Woody Harrelson's father admitted to doing that. Now, here's the thing with Woody Harrelson's dad. He killed a fucking judge. He was a fucking nut. He died in prison. But he also said that at the time that he was arrested, he was high on cocaine, and he said a bunch of stuff he didn't really mean. Would it shock me? No. Do I think that's the way it went down? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because at the end of the day, let me ask you guys, put a 1 in the chat if you think that Lee Harvey Oswald fired the shot. I'm curious. Hello, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Is there snow there, Dennis? Put a number 1 in the chat if you think that Lee Harvey Oswald fired a fatal shot, because I don't think he did. I sent you a super chat a few moments ago. Please tell me when it's convenient for you. Yeah, I got it. Thank you very much. Did I not click on the, here we go. We got a super sticker from KXTA. We got a KXTA $10, and we got another $5. Thank you very much. So, Timothy, are you saying that you don't believe that Oswald fired the shot? Well, okay, according to the FBI, he got off three shots. You know, listen, I don't know if it's possible. I've seen all kind of like ballistics experts argue back and forth, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because he's still got his head blown off. I mean, the job got accomplished if that's what they wanted. I can imagine a scenario where somebody like Oswald was one of the team of shooters. That's what I've always thought. That's what I've always thought. Listened. I don't know what you guys believe, but he gets hit through the throat, right? And there's this really interesting documentary you guys should go watch. It's all of the doctors that were actually in the ER that night. Yeah, I know, Danny, I'm missing the fucking game. They're playing the Rags tonight. Is he gets hit through the throat, and they believe that came from the back to the front. But they believe that the shot that exploded the back of his head came from the front. I don't know, back to front, front to back. Does it really matter at the end of the day? But I definitely think the headshot was a hell of a lot closer than the the book depository tower. I got to be honest. Oswald didn't have any gun residue on his cheeks, indicating he didn't. Correct. 100% correct. And listen, not for nothing, Jason. Like, they tried to say Oswald was a nut from day one, right? After you kill the president of the United States, you're going to go into a movie theater. You're going to go walk the streets. You're going to no, are you fucking out of your mind? I've never believed in a million years Oswald fired the shot that killed him. I think he fired one. What do you think of the picture where LBJ and the guy smirk at each other? Absolutely. I always thought it was interesting how Jackie Onassis Kennedy asked LBJ on the plane, "Why did you kill my husband?" Jesse says, I think he fired a shot, but not necessarily the one that killed him. No, I would agree. I would agree with you. I'd say no, but it wouldn't shock me to find out he did. No, would it shock me either? No. It seems like that seems to be the largest discrepancy amongst. Hold on. Okay. The largest discrepancy among people is that could he have done it, fired 3 shots, 2 hit him in the time allotted? Why would he do that? And then why does Ruby kill him? See, that's where I sort of deviate from everybody else, because Jack Ruby's stance was he was a patriot, he loved Kennedy, and he just wanted retribution. But the guy's a fucking gangster who's got all of these mob connections. To me, that's what the biggest sort of red herring is. To me, it's not a red herring that the FBI or the CIA was involved. That doesn't surprise me. We've been murdering other people's leaders for a long time. This is nothing new. But I do think the fact that Ruby was connected to the 4 gentlemen that you see on the top of the screen, I think that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal. It matters because a rifle exact wound is going to be a lot bigger than the entrance one. No, and I would agree with you. And in fact, when they did the autopsy, I'm going to tell you what one of these doctors said. These doctors were in the middle of measuring the trajectories of the wounds. And someone from the CIA and Secret Service came in and said, you are going to stop right now. And you are not going to tell anybody he was shot in the throat first. Do you understand? In fact, you're going to make the hole larger and you're going to say it was a tracheotomy hole, which he did have they did cut it to insert a tube to try to get his airways open. But these doctors are going on the record. I think it was on Peacock. I just watched it the other day, that they were trying to do the right thing, but the government said, nope, this is what you're going to do, And I think it does. I think it matters which direction it came from, because if everything was from the front, you can't say it was Oswald, 100% Ruby was in Marcello's pocket. 100%. I remember seeing Oswald getting shot. Oh, Ruby walked right up to him, point blank range. And one of the cops that was in the station house says, Jack, what the fuck are you doing? They all knew him. They knew him as a guy who ran brothels, who ran drugs, who ran guns. They all knew who he was. So for 2 days, what in the hell is this guy doing going in and out of the police station, getting the layout? That didn't, put yourself in that situation. You see a guy, he's a knockaround guy, whatever the case may be. Why are you here? Why are you here? And it just, that to me is there's just 3 or 4 things about this whole thing that should make you sort of go, you sure as shit know they used hollow points. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Don't believe Oswald ordered the rifle through the mail. No, I don't believe that either. No. Listen. So to bring up Frank Sheeran for a minute, okay, I don't believe much of what Frank Sheeran said, but there is something that I particularly happen to, I don't want to say it like I know it, like it's a fact, but I've heard it from multiple people that those guns were flown from an airfield to Texas. Now, when I was doing the Kennedy stuff, you have to go to that show and listen, because I had thousands and thousands and thousands of airtels, FBI memos, same things that most people can get their hands on. But there was something interesting about when it came to Ruby, that Ruby was transporting guns, and he did it by naval cargo, or a ship that looked like it was a naval cargo so it wouldn't get pulled over. That's what I read on the show. I still have all my files if anybody wants to see it, but that's kind of where I stand with that. Did JFK embarrass Sinatra? No, listen, Sinatra was used to get close to the mob. Joe Kennedy wanted to get his son elected. He knew they were going to have problems. John Kennedy was outspoken against unions, which was a big deal too, but they knew that down the line they were going to need unions. So he uses Frank Sinatra to go to Sam Giancana and Johnny Roselli and all these other guys to at least have some sort of meeting of the minds of what they could do for one another. And what ended up pissing off Sinatra was that he expected any time that JFK was going to be in LA that he was going to stay in Palm Springs with him. And what does JFK do? He goes and stays with Bing Crosby, who was a kid beater, a drunk, and a Republican. But the reason why JFK did that was because Bobby Kennedy had no clue that Operation Mongoose existed. Now, Operation Mongoose was the plot to kill Fidel Castro. Bobby Kennedy was kept in the dark. He had no clue that organized crime at that time was working with Kennedy and the administration. And once he found out, he went absolutely fucking berserk. And that's when he started clamping down on his brother. Stop seeing Sinatra. He's got friends with these gangsters. Somebody's going to talk. And that's kind of how that sort of went down. I kind of believe the story how a young, inexperienced Secret Service man who accidentally shot him in the front. I don't believe. You know what? I don't know. I don't know. And sometimes the most simple, logical answers are the easiest ones. But I don't think the American public is going to believe for 1 second that there was not some sort of. Oh, yeah, you know what? McDam, that's a very interesting comment, because I was about to say this. I was about to say, the fact that the FBI, CIA will not release any documents that they deem to be whatever the fuck and the reason why they deem them. But typically we see this when they're doing two things. When they're covering up their own complicity, or there was a major fucking mistake at a high level and they don't want to admit culpability for a mistake. And that opens us up to what McDam says. Could be possible. Could be possible. I think LBJ and the CIA did. Yeah, I do too. I've always kind of thought that. Because you have to ask yourself a question. Who has the most to gain with Kennedy the fuck out of office? Who had the most to gain? Ruby was going to talk, so they shot a needle in him, I heard. You would be correct. Ruby was in jail, and he kept sending letters to DC saying, I need help. Somebody's going to kill me, XYZ, XYZ. He said he was willing to go on the record, but he had to do it with protection, and he wanted to be in DC. He didn't want somebody coming to federal prison to see him, or state prison, wherever he was at the time. And the CIA and the FBI wanted nothing to do with him. You think if a guy's screaming he's got information about a murder, they'd want to talk to him, but they didn't. And he was complaining of headaches and some other problems. So a doctor came and saw him and gave him a shot. And within 2 weeks, he had full-blown cancer and was pretty much on his way out. And that was what one of the forensic pathologists said about Ruby, was that with the amount of cancer he had in his body, with the amount of everything that he would have had that when he shot Oswald. And they said that if he had had the total cancer like he had, he wouldn't have been able to get out of bed, let alone fire a gun. It's just very odd stuff. Do I think that the government has stuff that can kill you? Absolutely. Absolutely. If the Teamsters didn't support you, you weren't going to win the election back in the day. That is absolutely true. JFK, 9/11 documentaries, 911 is the one to watch. There are people out there who believe Oswald was the shooter and the only shooter, and that's that. Yeah, there are people that believe that. There are, flag-waving Americans that refuse to acknowledge for 1 second that our government could be that deadly. But our government's been doing that for a long time. That's nothing new. Love your content and point of view. Well, listen, my point of view is not for everybody. But it is what it is. Did JFK threaten J. Edgar Hoover too? Yo, he certainly did. Him and Bobby Bobby and J. Edgar Hoover had lots of wars, screaming matches. And it got to the point where J. Edgar Hoover changed the locks on his office so Bobby couldn't get in there anymore. It was ugly stuff. Oh, wow. Damien Trites is coming in with new names. Imagine that. Jerk off, loser. Let's see. Didn't Nixon pardon Hoffa? Yes. Doesn't that make you think, out of all the people in the government who may be involved, I think Nixon was that guy? Well, you gotta always, when I'm looking at these things, you have to ask yourself an important question. Who has the most to gain? And what is the gain that they hope to achieve? Those are the people that are going to have their hands in the cookie jar. You know what I mean? Mr. Gorky is in the house. So the other thing I want to talk about, we can come back to this, guys, but the other thing that I wanted to talk about really quick was the mob hit in Montreal. A lot of people have, when I say a lot of people, not on YouTube, so to speak, but there's been a lot of people talking about this. And what a lot of people don't understand, specifically about Canada, is it might as well be the Wild Wild West. For those that know, those that don't, Greg Woolley was shot and killed. He was a shot caller in prison, African-American. They say he was the first African-American ever inducted into the Hells Angels. This is a tough guy. This is a guy that had a lot of mob connections and was respected mutually across the board by everybody. And so what you have going on in Canada right now is you have basically four factions, okay? You have basically Andromeda, you have the Mafia, you have the Hells Angels, and then everybody else. And they're all fighting over power. If you look, yes, Haitian Canadian, correct. If you look at what's happened in the last couple of months, Leonardo DiCaprio, Leonardo Rizzuto was shot. Francesco Del Balso is the one that ordered that, and he tried to flee the country almost immediately after ordering that murder. And within, I think, a week and a half, he was shot and killed. So once again, and Del Balso was a guy who was with the Rizzutos, but ended up sort of subcontracting out with the Hells Angels. It's very odd. But that's really what this war is all about. Has Andromeda absorbed most of it? Absolutely. But the Rizzutos are still there. I don't think it's going to stop because everybody wants to run it. Everybody wants to run the show. And it just seems like they can't get any sort of peace at all. I've always often thought that the Rizzutos pretty much have been done for a while. But, it just goes to show, just when you think they're out, they get pulled right back in. With Woolley involved with the Hells Angels and the Rizzutos, do you think this is another move from Andromeda trying to trim the fat off the Rizzutos? No, because I think at the end of the day, if Andromeda wanted to totally get rid of the Rizzutos, they'd be gone. They're too powerful. They're too strong. But it seems like they're all fighting each other. This isn't like, Andromeda pulling the Hells Angels in on their side. And I got to listen, I'll say this about the Hells Angels. They're not going to give up turf to anybody. They don't give a fuck. But I think it's just going to keep going. It's just going to keep going and going and going until somebody ends up joining sides. Just a huge mistake where the U.S. couldn't tell the truth no matter what, because there would have been a mass chaos all over. People wouldn't. That was sort of, not to go down this rabbit trail, but that's my alien theory of why they could never admit to UFOs and shit like that, was because of mass hysteria. And Hamilton, especially. Hamilton is very, very, very bad. And I'm going to say this. Somehow, a couple of years, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, I was in Canada. Okay. And I don't know why I was even let across the border, because typically I get stopped at the border because I have a criminal record. But for some reason, I had flown in, and for some reason, the passport went through and whatever. And a friend of mine has cousins in Hamilton. and they're all Sicilian guys. And I'm going to tell you something. I had never, being when I was a younger kid playing hockey, I was in and out of Canada all the time to play hockey and stuff like that. But it reminded me of what the 1980s in New York City looked like, as far as like the Italian community. It's weird. It's a weird thing to see. And I'm trying to give you guys in a comparison so you guys can understand this, but it's almost like a time warp. It's almost like going back to the 1930s and 1940s in New York. Picture how you think Carlo Gambino and some of those guys would act. This is how these guys act. It's very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting. Biker Wars of the 80s and 90s says so. Absolutely. Some nut crashed into the Niagara Falls border checkpoint today. I'm sure that got some attention. 2 minutes away from me. Oh, wow. Is Alex D, are you on the American side or the Canadian side? They don't always check criminal history about our border. It's crazy because you know what, Rebecca, when I played pro hockey, okay, there were a lot of guys that came in from Canada to play. And sometimes the Border Patrol agents would hold their visa for 2 weeks. They were in limbo. Like if camp started like the first weekend in October, depending on what league you were playing. And like the ECHL, I think was like, I want to say like the first week of October, second week you started camp. Oh, like, so half your team, if half your guys were from Montreal or Toronto, Mississauga, wherever they were from, or the Pas, Manitoba, they could not get over the border. And they were stuck in limbo at the border for 2 weeks, just coming to play hockey. But I've always heard it's not always, it's been my experience, it's harder getting into the border than it is getting out. That's been my experience. But then again, most of it was from Niagara. That's where everybody was coming in from, because they were driving from like Toronto or Montreal to Toronto. They'd come through Buffalo, Niagara, and all of that. It's very weird. I am Canadian, but where are you talking about? Niagara. Keenan says, I got banned from Canada. I heard from my Canadian people in here, I heard that if you have a DUI, Canada will not let you into their country. Is that true? I mean, good on them if that's the way they feel about it. But somebody told me that the other day. It's like, what? Like, I can understand if you robbed a bank or something or killed somebody, but well, this would have been back. Oh God, 90s. This is not like recently. This was all like in the 90s, like 94, 95, 96, 98, 99, late 90s. I don't know. That's what I heard. Good job on Philly Mob. Frank Engel is great, especially messing with Nikki. Yeah, if you guys are unfamiliar, I dropped a bunch of new content on the Waterfront Part 3, which talks about the unions in the waterfront. And we also talked about the Philadelphia mob wars. But here's sort of a spoiler. I didn't get into the hit for hit, name for name kind of thing. I just kind of took it from a street narrative as far as I could. Randy, what's up, Jeff? Everything is good. I can't really complain, but I do not think that this stuff in Canada is done. I really don't. I just, what are the rackets you'd fight over? Well, you're going to fight over the tobacco rackets. You're going to fight over narcotics. What else is there? I mean, what else really is there other than like construction, extortion, and stuff like that? Yeah, there you go. You can't come in with felonies. I wonder why the United States doesn't do that. Odd. Really enjoying the waterfront shows. Well, I think there's 4 or 5 parts. So we've got 2 more coming, and I try to release them every 2 weeks or so. What's next? Death penalty for parking violations? Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a felon, don't try coming into Canada. Now, the one loophole that I found, I shouldn't even say this is highly fucking sort of illegal. The one loophole that people that I know other than myself have found is if they're flying in to like Vancouver or whatever, and they go through customs. I heard if you fly through Vancouver, they're not bad. But if you're going through Toronto or Montreal, you're fucked. But I don't know. I think it just depends, you know. Look at so that's that Chris Gorky guy. He's got 17 felonies. Get him out of the country. You know what I mean? Four sides warring. It'll never be done. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It escalated. Absolutely. Until there is one sort of big leadership group. Like, listen, if you really want the truth of the matter, I think this is Andromeda poking all sides and watching them fight each other. That's what I think it is. That's what I think it is. I think Andromeda's pulling strings behind the scene, and it makes sense. It makes sense. Totally. Canada has strict gun laws. Can you see any of these groups trafficking guns into the country? I think the only group that could do that is Andromeda. Yeah, I'd agree with you. But, you know, listen, every government's corrupt. You know, the big knock on America is that, oh, you know, you could take away all the guns, criminals can still get them. Well, that's the truth, because whenever something's prohibited, you can always get it. You can, like, I'll give you an example of this. I'd have to be careful about how I know a guy who can get guns that they're brand new, manufactured, and they're not even registered. So in other words, the serial number on the gun is not registered to anything or anywhere. That's crazy to me. I think you can pardon your crimes, but I don't know how. I know in this country you can. I know in this country you can. In this country you get a pardon, meaning you get your civil rights restored, which I got mine restored. So you have to be. It has to be a non-violent offense and a non-DUI or domestic. Hello, Christopher.
What's up? Thanksgiving gonna be boring.
Yeah, well, you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's life, man. Watch football all day. That's what I'm gonna do.
You watch football all day?
That's it, man. I went to see my mom today. My brother has, niece and nephew. They're gone far away out of state, so my dad ain't gonna be around. So I'm gonna be by myself. But whatever. That's how it's been for a while.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Did you place any money on that game yesterday?
Eagles? Yeah, man. That was a great game. That's fucking great.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah, I had 2 bets in. I get this new laptop. They look good. They're really good. They're really good, man. The Kennedy stuff's really interesting, man. You know, I'm a big fan of that. You know what's amazing is how many people had to be involved in knowing it was going down, and yet, like, just to keep it all quiet, and that it still happened. You know what I mean? Like, it's how, like, I know you don't know, but like, and you don't want to talk about the CIA side, but how many like government entities, government people do you think were, like, roughly? I mean, like 20. I counted today because there is a list that's out. So I counted a list, and it was like something like, I think it was like 75 just on a short list. And then you click like another button and then it jumps to like 200 more. That knew that was like kind of like part of it or knew about it in some way.
Anybody that had, it was sort of like, you know, when you see like the movies where a guy's doing like the pinhole pricks with the yarn of, okay, this murder is attached to that, murder is attached to this. What somebody did was they went through, and anybody that was connected to anybody, not other than just like, oh, I know Chris Gorky, it had to have been, they had to have some type of interpersonal relationship. And like the list is ridiculous. And the list between like Roger Mayhew and Alan Dulles and like gangsters, Clay Shaw, David Ferry, Jack Ruby, just the list is, I think Dorothy Kilgallen was one. Then there was LBJ's, I think Gumata, I think he had a mistress. They had her on the list because apparently when they were doing it one night, he bragged about killing Kennedy.
Oh, Jesus.
But I don't know if that's the case, but you know.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I just meant more from the government side, like, because, you know, obviously it was the CIA, but how complicit you think were like Secret Service and FBI?
Well,
mostly CIA.
So you have to look at the protocol, right? So who pulls guys off of Secret Service duty? Does the FBI pull them off or does the CIA pull them off? Because there was supposed to be like I'll give you an example. Like Biden was like
Right.
somewhere like a month ago and there was 500 agents.
Right.
For Kennedy, there was 14.
Well, I think it would probably be whoever's the head Secret Service guy in charge, like a supervisor.
Right. But wouldn't that be like the first person the Warren Commission would want to talk to?
Well, yeah, I mean,
but they never did.
Was as corrupt as fuck. I mean, they're the ones that
I think the CIA pulled rank and pulled them off.
Yeah, they're.
And do you remember the scene when I can't play it because I'll get struck? Do you remember the scene after Kennedy like kind of gets hit and he goes straight down? You remember Jackie Kennedy crawling on the back of the car?
Yes.
Do you know what she was actually doing?
You mentioned, I don't remember it all.
She was picking up his brains.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I had always thought she was going to the back to get away and try to help the Secret Service agent up. No, she was picking up his brains off the back of the car.
Well, I mean, it's so that Zapruder film, like that just in the autopsy with the doctors you mentioned, but nothing blows the single theory shooter out of the water. Like all you gotta do is watch the Zapruder film. You can see, when you're talking about Oswald and did he shoot the fatal shot? What shot? I think he shot the shot that went through the back of the neck when Kennedy.
I'll give you that. Yeah,
that is the shot I think he took, and then the other shot you just see right off his head a few seconds later.
Yeah, that had to have come from
the front.
The front, 100%. 100%.
And the one thing that not everybody, there's a million different theories, but like the majority of people realize Oswald was from behind him. He couldn't shoot him from the front. So
that guy knew he was fucked. He had to have known. Who had the most to gain from JFK dying? Well, Lyndon Johnson and the big war machine amongst government that wanted to do a lot of different things.
But when you were asking what did the mob gain from that, didn't Robert Kennedy after that kind of like his power all went away a little bit?
It neutered him in a way where he got quiet for a while and then his focus went right off the mob to like, he knew the government had, stuff to do with it. Yeah. But then once he starts, ratcheting up because he's going to run, he starts to get, mouthy again, And I told you the other day, I've been listening to Bobby Kennedy Jr. talk about some wild shit, bro. Like he doesn't. He knows more than him. He went and spoke to. He spoke to the parole board about letting Sirhan out of prison. So
I know. Yeah,
that's crazy.
They were gonna let him out, and you know who blocked it? Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
he was gonna be let out, and the governor of California for whatever reason. Which that really makes you. I'm not one of these guys that gets into all that like conspiracies as far as every little thing that the government's behind there, but there's just so much stuff anymore, man.
He got shot in the back like 5 times. It's like
crazy.
Insane. And then there's a photo that they've showed before where you've got Sirhan standing in front, but then you see a guy in the back doing this number.
Jesus. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I mean, I didn't see him. I just remember one basic video, but it's just nuts. It really makes you think. And like I said, I'm not one of these conspiracy guys, but it's like that movie Sound of Freedom. That was an incredible movie. Great. And there are so many people in Hollywood elitists that did everything they could to try to not show that movie.
Yeah.
Like that's fucked up. You know what I mean? That really makes you think. I mean, there are people watching it in movie theaters and all of a sudden the film was going off, the heat was turning on, all these problems all of a sudden. It was really fucked up, man.
Well, it's funny. It's not funny, but to make a comparison, and some people in the chat are not going to like this comparison, but when Malcolm X got killed, if you look at everything that happened with that, and you don't think that like the government wasn't involved in somehow letting people get in with weapons, and it's crazy.
Well,
if anybody thinks that Martin Luther King was killed by anybody other than the CIA, they're off their fucking meds.
Martin Luther King was. Now, I do think with Malcolm X,
Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, I'm sure that the government probably had no issue with allowing.
No, the cops were pulled off the beat.
Yeah, it's
You
just
know,
fucking crazy. It's crazy. That's what I mean. Could you imagine if Robert Kennedy does somehow win the presidency and then he gets assassinated? Can you imagine? Holy
oh my
fuck!
God. Dear,
That's
knock on wood, I hope not, because I like him, but
I like
um,
him too because he's his own person. You know what I mean? He doesn't go to one side or the other. He just does what
no,
he
he's
thinks is
just,
right.
this is how I feel. And it's
Yeah,
weird because listening to him, like he did a great podcast with Bill Maher, which I thought was great. And some of the other interviews he's done, he's just point blank put it out there like, we know who did
yeah,
it, but and then now you have the conspiracy theorists that will say that uh John F. Kennedy Jr. and that whole plane thing was that the government was terrified he would run. And it's like, are we really getting into the Sicilian vendetta shit where if the son
that's good.
lives?
Yeah, that's kind of like that's nuts. But it I don't know. I hope he wins. It'll be very interesting. But another thing to think about is obviously the government doesn't want to release information that could make them look bad and all that.
Right.
But I think another reason why they're not even releasing it today, why current presidents are still not releasing it, is look at all the untrust of the government of just current stuff today. I'm not getting into the politics, but there's so many
Right.
FBI whistleblowers that come forward because it's like a two-tier justice system of going after certain people and not others. And I mean, there's been a ton of whistleblowers that have come forward testifying how they're
Right.
told that, like, so you have so much amount of distrust in the government right now that if you brought that out on top of it, put it right, I would just go.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. They have more to lose by letting anything out because I mean, not to get into the whole Trump thing, but look at the way the country is now. Nobody believes what they're being told. But here's an interesting thing, and this didn't dawn on me for probably till I was in my mid-20s, is that once you go to Europe and come back, you start to see the way the American news cycle works, and you start to see that our news cycle is no better than North Korea. They tell you exactly what they want you to. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I don't know why. Like, obviously, Fox News leans right, and everywhere else leans like so far to the left. And I never realized how bad it was until I never followed politics closely until Trump ran the first time because of the debates were so great. And I know you love the Roseanne fucking bars that Roseanne Barr.
You called women fat pigs. No, just Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, right. But and I would sit there, flip back and forth. I would watch like Fox News, listening to the story, and then I'd flip to CNN, listen to their story, and they're covering the same topic, but their spins were so far opposite. So I don't know. Maybe that's what sells, but whatever. It's fucking crazy. But you don't think Roselli was a shooter? Now I know in the past you mentioned you think he may have been a shooter.
You know what? I don't know where I stand on that because logic tells me that if you're going to assassinate somebody, you need a marksman. You need somebody who is not going to miss a shot. Was Roselli that guy? I don't know. You would think that they would use somebody that was former military, government, special ops kind of thing. I just don't know. I mean, listen, if I'm Lyndon Johnson, let's pretend Lyndon Johnson meets with Alan Dulles. Dulles says, I want this fucker clipped. It's done and over with. Oh, let's use Johnny Roselli. He was a crack shot 40 years ago. Like, no, let's use a CIA agent with a sniper rifle. Let's do it this way. So I don't know. But they pulled it off. I mean, that's to me is the more.
Well, here's something to think about. The CIA, the government, if the shooters ended up getting caught, say that day, the other shooters like Oswald, I'm sure the CIA wanted plausible deniability.
Of course.
So wouldn't it make sense then if they used a mob guy to say, hey, look, it's mob doing it, not us? Well, I mean, it's plausible deniability. They're not going to have someone link back to that like a, like if you put a CIA guy in there and he gets caught and he's a CIA guy or former CIA,
That's why I'm completely and utterly shocked that the CIA wasn't slick enough to be like, let's release Operation Mongoose and pin it on these grease balls right now. And maybe in some ways, my buddy Harry Anderson is probably going to say, well, maybe they did. That would have been the way to deflect. But they were very bad at covering their own ass on this one.
Was Operation Mongoose the ones where the CIA was looking to
Castro?
Right, but is that the one where they're looking to like bomb America to blame it on Castro?
Oh yeah, they were gonna blow up. They were gonna blow up U.S. military bases to incite war. Harry says another good question would be, why was JFK killed in Texas and not anywhere else? I had heard through the grapevine, and through FBI airtels, that there was some kind of phone call where somebody said it was supposed to have happened in Chicago, but that
makes sense.
That people got nervous because they were afraid that Chicago would be attached with certain crime figures. And they didn't want it there, so there was this big debate.
That would make sense. That makes sense. But
I don't.
Have you ever heard? Is it possible to even get the recording of Buffalino saying we killed the wrong Kennedy? Was that a wiretap or?
Yeah, it was a wiretap.
Well, that'd be awesome. See here.
I'll have to call Joey, and he can get me my friend who can open up a what do you call it? A storage unit, and we'll go through all the JFK
Jesus Christ. That's funny shit, man. Ray 70 ground with the turkey drive, he said.
Did you see the look on that guy? You see the look on Joey's face?
That was fucking hilarious.
And the guy looks at him and goes, why y'all rats keep messing with my man? Joey's like, all right, thank you very much.
Yeah. But he says he knew him his whole life, and he'd probably,
Yeah, I heard it was low turnout.
Really?
Yeah. Like for food and stuff, but that's South Philly. They're coming for the hardware, not the food.
Yeah.
How many of them bikes do you think they took and sold 10 minutes later?
Oh God, that's such a good point, man. Jesus.
Seriously.
Yeah.
He called me the other day. We were talking. I almost said to him, hey, prick, how much you want to 10 to 5? 10 to 5. Actually, I'd go 4 to 1. Them bikes last 5 minutes in the hands of the people who get them. They're going to be around the corner, be like, yo, Phil, check us out. Look at this bike. $10, $10.
Imagine riding and he sees these guys, the bikes being loaded, sold them in that corner and shit.
Hey, they raised $70,000. They gave back to the community. And I want to correct something, because there was a content creator who misspoke today. And he said, for 20 years, Joey's been doing this every year. No, he hasn't.
Well, how could he when he was in prison?
He was in jail for 16 of those 14.
Yeah.
So, no, to my knowledge, it's only been a couple of times, but the guy's been, in and out of prison. But guess what? He raised more than I could have.
Well, yeah.
That's for sure.
He's a charismatic guy, like it or not. He has a big following, and he's just a popular figure, man.
You look like you've lost weight.
Yeah, I wish I did. Thanks.
No, like seriously.
No, man. No weight. You only see me like, well.
I see you once a week on screen. Your face looks thinner.
I wear a hat. I don't know, maybe without the hat on. Trust me, I didn't lose any weight, man. I wish I did.
It's odd. This light makes me look like I actually have somewhat of a tan, which I don't.
Maybe that's what it is, the light. I got this new computer. The fucking laptop went down. Is McDam still in the chat? I can't type in the chat because I gotta still set my computer up.
That's okay. We only had Damian Trites come in here running his mouth. He's got nothing better to do.
You had the comments turned on to the one short that you dropped a couple of days ago, and he said something, and I replied to him, and that was that. But
I didn't even know. I don't even read my comments. So
I don't usually turn them off because of that bull crap, and I didn't want to mention anything. Did you get?
Oh, was it bad, or was it just typical nonsense?
Just typical shit. Just typical. But no, he asked me. I don't like if he's asking me who I like this weekend. Football, I never really looked at, but I love college games. I love taking Bama over. I love favorites. Bama over Auburn. Bama's great. Or fucking Auburn sucks. Oregon over Oregon State. And the game I like most, well, I like Bama most, but I really like Ole Miss giving 10 to Mississippi State. Mississippi State sucks. You know what they call Ole Miss versus Mississippi State? What they call the bowl? The Egg Bowl.
Really?
Yeah, good old Southern football, man. The Egg Bowl, because I guess it's like where it's like a shape of an egg. The bowl they play in some they play in each other stadiums. But anyways, oh, there you are, McDam. Yeah, I can't type, but I didn't even look at the pro games. Like I said, I like Ole Miss, Bama, and Oregon. Mainly Ole Miss and Bama I like the most.
Let's see. What is your opinion on why Hoover denied the existence? Because he was on the take. Well, that and they had very salacious photos of him
videos
doing frisky things with other gentlemen.
Was that in New York City? They got those photos.
Yeah.
Set them up. Was that New York?
Yeah. It was with the same guy he was with his whole life. So it wasn't like,
it was like little partner or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. But he denied it because it was in his best interest to deny that. And then he had no other.
Especially back then. That's fucking crazy.
Well, if they've got you wearing a fucking garter belt and a sock in your mouth, like, you know, it's not good. It's not good for business. Let's see. Joey said it was a new event, didn't he? I don't know what he said. I know he did one in the 90s. He did a couple of other ones, but I think this is the first one he's really done in the last 15 years. I mean, he did 14 in jail, right? And then another year and a half. So he's been doing it every year. It's odd to me. Very strange.
They don't think things through. They just try to give them a compliment, and they don't. See, that's the difference between you and a lot of these other guys is you think things through. Other guys just spot out for headlines or just throw shit out there. But you just use common sense and things through. Other people don't. But
yes, Aunt Mike Davis. I saw Angela Lutz in the background myself. I respect all the work you do and put in your videos. Been listening for years. Stay blessed. Gonna try. Listen, I wasn't expecting a lot of people on tonight. It's a slow night. People actually have lives and something to do.
I'm just laughing at what this guy told me when I told you the other day about Angela Lutz.
I know I'd love to tell that story, but I'm afraid that if I do, my phone's going to ring.
God. Oh, well, I'll tell you what, after what I heard about Joe Lagambi, I've always respected him as a boss, but after I heard him, I respected him for more.
Listen, what he did when Joey went away was like,
that's
But, because if you really think about it, if you want to talk about the history for a minute, every boss has had the same problem there. Believe it or not, like going back to Sabella, is they're operating in a 6 square block area and they're all fighting over the same piece of bread.
Right.
And even when Sabella had those problems, fucking Scarfo had those problems. Stampa had those problems. Everybody has always typically had the same problem. And when Joey goes away, Joe Lagambi is allegedly the boss.
Right.
And there's calm, there's tranquility. The stars have aligned and it's quiet.
Yeah. I mean, he did a great, but it wasn't just like mending fences between whatever's left of the Scarfo guys, Joey's guys, but wasn't also keeping the Lucchese's at bay too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and he was.
Yeah. I mean, there's 3 different entities all looking to go at each other, and he kept things peaceful and business going.
And he was definitely the wrong one to push. Like,
I mean,
make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
He's the wrong one, I always said he has a laugh like a pterodactyl. Like a scream like a pterodactyl, but why has Canada not solved the Highway of Tears? I don't know. That's another big case, but I don't want to.
Was that like people
have disappeared, been murdered, that kind of stuff.
Real killer shit on a highway. Let me think if you're these crime figures, and I know it's all about ego, power, but like, wouldn't it make sense to try to come together a little bit, split the pot, stop fighting? I guess that's too much to ask between 4 groups. Look what they did in Italy, Camorra and Dragata, Cosa Nostra. I mean, 3 of them did it there. Wouldn't that the leaders of these organizations think like, hey, or is it just too much to split 4 ways? So fuck it.
Money, root of everything. Ego. Like I always use this argument. Pablo Escobar. How much is enough? You got hippos, for Christ's sakes. You got your own fucking petting zoo. You're burning money just because you have too much of it. Like, at what point do you just say, I've got more than enough, go do your thing? But nobody's ever going to let him do his thing because he's always a threat.
Right.
Same thing with the mob, same thing with organized crime. Can you imagine how treacherous the 80s must have been in New York City with the construction rackets? I bet you money, even though they had the concrete club, I bet you there was somebody that was seething and wanted to kill every single fucking boss there was to take all of it. That's just how people's minds operate when there's money.
So much money to be made with that shit.
Like, would you rather take $1 million sitting on the table, or would you rather take $5 million over a 2-year period by taking a little at a time? Problem is, the mentality of gangsters is, I'm taking it all right now, and I'm going to take it for the next 2 years. You got to take a pick.
Yeah. No, well, you're right. I'm surprised so many of them, I don't know if allows the right word, but like Big Paul to be so greedy. If they're all splitting it, like, shouldn't that have been an equal share if they're all part of the concrete club?
The reason why you have that problem is it's because the upper 5%, not even that, like the upper 2% in organized crime are loaded. They're rich. The rest, not so much. So it's I'm
talking between the families, though. Like, didn't Big Paul get the biggest cut of the?
Of course, yeah. He was screwing everybody out of the concrete club money.
So in a meeting, wouldn't other bosses from other families say, "Hey, listen, we're going to split this equally, or it's not"?
I'm sure that's the way that it was presented, but that's not what happened, and that's why Tony Ducks Corallo got so pissed off and started screaming in his Jaguar about the fat fuck on the hill. So if you were let's play this for a second. If you were an organized crime boss, how much money would be enough for you to say, you know what, I'm good, let somebody else deal with this now?
Today,
or would you have to keep the power?
No, I definitely could care less about the power because it drive me crazy. You weren't about the feds breathing down my neck. I would try to make as much money as I could really quick within a year or so. If I could possibly stay on the radar, 50 million. I mean, I don't know how much the top bosses make, but if I could get something close to like 50 million to live extremely comfortably, I'm out. I don't care about ego, power, sayonara. See you later. You can have the rest. I'm gone. Don't bother me. Don't touch my money, and you can have the whole fucking thing.
Imagine.
Maybe, I mean, it would depend how long it would take me to make. You know what I mean? Like,
it's been said that John Gotti gambled $40 million away.
Wow. That's 5 years.
I don't know if I believe that. That's like fucking staggering to me. They were poor. The Gambinos were pulling in like net of like $600 million when Gotti was boss. You got to figure he's getting at least 20% of that? At least?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know what guys make today, if you're referring today, back then, but like I said, if I could make 50 million within a year, I'm gone. If I could make 50 million within a half year, I'm gone. I mean, just
I think anything north of 30 and up, I'm good.
Yeah, and I would even settle for that. Like, just, but I mean, once you see how probably easy it is to make, these guys are probably like, hey man, I'm gonna keep this going.
I mean, I think legitimately, like in the 1960s, Carlo Gambino's worth probably almost $1 billion on his own at the end of the day after everything's said and done. We know Tony Salerno had $1 billion just on his own. But I think towards the 90s, they said the Gambinos, like I said, pulled in $600 million. Gotti probably had $100 million of that. Easy at some point.
You mentioned many times that, like, what was one of the wealthiest eras in Biden, and you always mentioned the Gambino's construction when Gotti was.
And I think probably now, knowing what I do know loosely, I think the Genovese and the Gambinos are still the wealthiest, and they're probably pulling in $200 million a year. It's nowhere near what it was, which leads me to this next question. And it's not a loaded question, but I've always said this: if you're a mob boss and you're not making north of $5 million a year, why bother?
Yeah. I agree with that, but it's in their heads. It's like you say, it's just they like the action, they like the power, and if they get close to that power. But that's the point I'm making. If it's $5 million a year, so you're making $4 million a year, are you going to keep that going? Like, if it ain't happening, man, you make your couple million and you skate.
Yeah, why?
It's not worth having the limelight on you, because that like $5 million, $4 million bucks, it's a lot of money. But today,
that's nothing.
Yeah. So,
and by the way, I'm just going to say this in the chat: if you're going to come in here and you're going to say lie-filled things, despicable things, it's the day before Thanksgiving, and I think people just need to get an enema and a fucking lobotomy. I've never groveled on anybody's show. I will never grovel to anybody. When I make a mistake, I apologize, and that's more than I can say for 99.9% of everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's it. So obviously you don't like my show, so don't come in here starting your nonsense. So I meant to say this. So Oscar Goodman, somebody dropped me an email that there may be a possibility that I can interview Oscar Goodman.
Wow. And I think I know who. I can take a guess. I won't say who dropped you an email. I got a fucking cramp in my leg that's killing me right now.
No, but you probably wouldn't know, because I might as well just be honest about it. I got an email from a guy who wrote a book, right? And he's ex-LAPD, ex-FBI, and I politely, and this is a guy that worked with Tony Spilotro in Vegas, and I read his email and I looked at it, and then I kindly sent him an email back, which, if anybody doubts what I said, I still have the email, and I said, with all due respect, I would never have you on my show being an ex-FBI agent, but have a nice day. And then I forwarded him to somebody else. And he's the one that says, by the way, I think I can get you Oscar Goodman. And I'm like, appreciate it. I'll go do that on my own. I have no interest. No interest, because
you're weird. Well, are you saying something happened after that you're saying you have an opportunity, or is it dead now?
No, I mean, I may have an opportunity, but I don't, hey, happy Thanksgiving to you too, Stone Sailor. Who is the most
makes sense though if Oscar Goodman
who's an attorney?
Yeah,
he's very old too. Very old.
Here's the thing. He hates rats. He hates rats more than as much as Joey Molino hates rats.
I know.
So, like, I could really see him watching your show and how you're one of the few that go against rats and attack rats as much as you do. And you're kind of like, you play the defense attorney yourself a little. He probably respects what you say and the paperwork you do. So I could see why he would, if he watches your show, which I assume he does, or why he would want to be like willing to come on your show to be interviewed.
Yeah, I'm gonna call somebody and find out. I think it would be worth it, and he's not going to say anything that's going to impugn anybody. That's what but I'm not going to have no FBI agent on my show. I just can't do it. It's just not in my.
Oh my God, fucking leg.
Yes, my father was a brown water Navy guy. He absolutely was. Absolutely was. So with this being Thanksgiving, are you thankful for anything?
I'm not thankful for this fucking cramp in my leg right now. No, I'm thankful for a fucking miserable life. I'll be thankful if my bets cover. Other than that, no, I ain't thankful for shit. Hopefully my family stays healthy. That's it.
Let me guess, you had a lot of sugar today, didn't you?
No, I just think I'm dehydrated. I always have a lot of sugar. It's just fucking I'm dehydrated. I worked all day. I drink at work water. That's it. That's all we have. I get the worst cramps, man. The Charlie horses in the back are fucking brutal. It's not back there. It's like, but whatever.
Keenan says you should do some lunges.
Yeah, well, I'm doing like one of these type things, trying to stretch it out. But
what we need is the douche.
Yeah. That's what I heard of fucking Cancun. Douche, shot. That's why.
How did Oscar Goodman become the mob's attorney in Vegas for all those years? How did he keep winning those cases? Hey, when you know how to put pressure on the rats in the government, then you absolutely uh, become a prolific attorney. 100%. It's just guys are just. It's hard to explain, but some lawyers are just suited to be mob lawyers, and most of these guys, if they hadn't been lawyers, would have been gangsters themselves. When did Frank Cali become boss? I want to say probably 94, 95.
Anybody ever notice how what? No, you're not kidding. He's fucking in his bedroom. I mean, who knows if he'll come out. But
I can't specifically say when he became a boss, but that's what I typically believe.
I got Gatorade. This should do the trick. Well, you're supposed to drink it beforehand. So what are you going to do tomorrow?
Believe it or not, you guys are going to love this plan. I'm going to stay up tonight, watch TV, probably text you a little bit, go to bed, get up whenever the fuck I wake up, turn back the TV on, eat pasta, and do nothing. I'm not going to
get to you, man.
Nah.
Doing nothing. I'm not talking about the holidays. I'm just talking about just like being a hermit, being alone so much. Like, I know you stay busy working.
No.
That's to me, man. It's fucking sucks.
You know why it doesn't bother me? Because I can't get in trouble. You know, like I had an incident today. I tell you the truth, I had an incident today, right? Where I'm coming in my building door and there's this like, I don't know, I think she's biracial, right? She don't like me for some reason, but whatever, you know, I'm always polite to everybody. And she's going in ahead of me and she lets the door conk me right in the fucking head. And before I can say anything, I just turn to look at her and she goes, "Oh, my bad." And then she turns and looks at me and says, "Oh, it's you. Never mind. I'm glad it hit you in the face."
Oh my God.
And it took everything that I had to not go crazy.
Does she work there, you said, or lives there?
No, she lives on the fourth floor. I don't know. Anyway. And it took everything I had not to walk over there and introduce her face to the wall. Yeah, just because I don't like being talked to that way. So instead I do the adult thing and I hit the elevator button. I'm going up to my floor. And as the elevator door is closing, I hear her start running her fucking mouth. I look down, my shoes aren't tied. I says, okay. So I came upstairs, put on my shoes, my other shoes, tied them and went back downstairs looking for some fun. She was no longer anywhere to be found.
Jesus Christ. That's not the
I'm from Harlem. I don't give a fuck if you're from Jupiter. I'll throw you out the fucking 6th floor window.
That's not the girl from that had that one friend in town that back.
Yeah.
That stole from you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So it just sometimes people are just dealing with. Listen, it's the holidays. Maybe she's got something going on, but it's just kind of like, I know you just didn't let that fucking door hit me in the fucking head. Like. But what are you going to do? You know, so that's why I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'm not going to do any work. So help me God. If my phone, either one of my phones rings from Philadelphia, I'm not picking it up. You know, I just want to like do nothing, kill Nazis on my fucking war game. That's it.
Yeah, I'm going to need a banana if I have one here. Well, that's fun, man. Do your go kill some Nazis.
Yeah, Christmas is different, but no, Thanksgiving's just another day to me. It has been for a long time.
Date. I was texting with Dean. I said, Dean, what's a good date to go down in December to see Jeff do the Christmas?
You know he lives in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, he's in. Well, I'm not gonna say, but yeah. So what?
That's right on the line of Jersey, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Though.
Yeah, anyway. He's south though of me, but regardless, anyways, yeah, just give us a date. You're not squirming out of this one.
No. We got to get together with that other thing anyway. So
yeah.
All right, we'll go eat a banana. I'm going to throw you out of the room because I'm going to say goodbye.
All right, to everybody. Guys. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. See you later.
Right. Anyway. Sorry if the show was not the most exciting thing in the world, but I personally am exhausted. It's been a long month. Been doing a lot of work. And that's it. We will not be live this Sunday. However, we have something special coming next week. Well, Jesse, oh, you have the Muppets, so you can't do just nothing. Anyway, if you could do me a favor, all I need you guys to do is one or two things. Share the show and subscribe if you haven't. That's all I ask. From the bottom of my heart to all of you, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And we will see all of you sooner than you think. Be safe out there. Find something to laugh about. Have something to laugh about. KXTA, before you go, the Munsters all fucking day. All fucking day.